A few years ago, I was going through a rough patch financially and was looking for just about any job that would pay decent and had flexible hours. I used to work as a housekeeper, and quite honestly, it was something I was hoping would come up as a job opportunity. At that time, I was living in Vacherie, Louisiana, which was kind of far from all the major hustle and bustle Louisiana has to offer. Lucky for me, a friend of mine told me about a small housekeeping job her boss had mentioned. They were looking for someone to come in 2 times a week to clean the first and second floors of this house that was located downtown New Orleans. To fast forward things a bit, I ended up going to the place. It was a huge French home literally in the heart of NOLA, and I got the job. The first day was vanilla. Nothing but work, you know. I did what I was there to do, and as I got ready to leave, I got a whiff of this horrible stench, almost like burnt, rotten meat. I thought to myself, shit, did I forget to take out the trash? So I ran to the kitchen, and the smell faded. I kept checking, but I couldn't find the source of the smell. After double checking everything, I left. When I came back the day after, I was in the second floor dusting the parlor area when I heard chains being dragged on the floor. At first, it startled me and I brushed it off at someone outside. But I heard it again and again. It definitely was coming from inside the house, so I ran as fast as I could downstairs to tell the other housekeeper that someone else could possibly be inside. It was only the two of us there that day. She looked at me and told me to mind my own business and keep working, that it was nothing. She was a kind of a mean old lady, so I shrugged it off and went back upstairs. Again, out of nowhere, that putrid stench of burnt rotten meat filled the air. It was very annoying because just like that, it randomly came and went. Some days you'd smell it downstairs, other days upstairs. Later on that day, while I was using the restroom, I heard this huge commotion upstairs on the third floor. What sounded like a young girl screaming and a woman chasing after her, saying, "Get in here." I literally was like, what the fuck? I opened the door and heard running upstairs, and then it stopped. The yelling, the screaming, everything. I went back downstairs, and at this point, I was frustrated, and I told the other housekeeper what I just heard. She looked at me, and she said, "You never hear anything, okay? It's best if you just go on as if you don't notice a thing." The thing is, she always assured me that there was no one there, that we were fine. Needless to say, I only worked there for a whole month, because that's how long I could take. I had heard the repetition of the same yelling, screaming, and chasing. Other days I'd hear chains dragging and dropping on the floor. But the thing that did it for me was when I was taking my lunch break on the second floor, and I heard a sudden cry of agony and despair, followed by the sound of chains that seemed to be coming from the third floor. I panicked, thinking someone was hurt and needed help. And as soon as I was getting up to go get help, I see a tall, dark man with chains around his neck. Just like that, I ran out of the house as quick as possible. I never even told the person that hired me I had no intentions of returning. I just stopped showing. As rude as it may seem, I couldn't care less. I just wanted nothing to do with that place. Anyway, it wasn't until 4 years later, when I had long moved away from Louisiana, that I had returned to New Orleans with my boyfriend on vacation. We decided to do one of their spooky history tours, and I tell you, when I see that familiar building, my heart sank. Anxiety was building up inside me, and as the tour guide told the story of the building I once used to work at, and the horrible, tragic, malicious things that happened there, I felt sick to my stomach, and I begged my boyfriend and I to go back to the hotel. When I worked at the infamous LaLaurie mansion, I never knew that history. Heck, I had never even heard of it. But after the tour facts and doing my own research, everything I experienced there made sense. It still gives me goosebumps to this day, remembering that day I heard Madame LaLaurie chasing after what could have been a slave girl upstairs in the 3rd floor. I'm almost positive it was her. Also, I will add that the stench of rotten, burnt meat could have been the spirits of the many slaves that died, tortured by the hands of that evil woman. Sorry if this is quite long, but I don't want to skip out on any details. This happened to me quite a few years ago, but I can remember it very clearly, and it still gives me shivers. It definitely made me much more of a believer than I used to be. So, many years ago, I was peacefully asleep, and for absolutely no reason, I woke up at about 4 in the morning. And before I even opened my eyes, my heart was absolutely pounding in my chest, like I had just run a marathon twice. I opened my eyes, and as plain as day, I saw a shadow person stood between me and my wardrobe. My room was bathed in a faint blue glow from my sandbar, and this shadow person very easily stood out against the background of blue on my white wardrobe. Now, I say person, but this shadow was a woman. I had absolutely no idea how I knew that, but this was definitely a woman, and she was staring straight at me. My heart was going 1,000 miles an hour in my chest as my eyes locked with hers, or at least where her eyes should have been, if she wasn't just a solid black mass. We stared at each other for maybe 30 seconds before she just disappeared. She didn't fade away, walk through a wall, or anything like that. She just vanished instantly, as if she had been erased from existence. After that, I'm sure you can imagine how long I sat up with my lamp on to read a book, trying to distract myself about what just happened. On a side note, the room this happened in used to be for my younger brother before he moved out. And he had told me that he used to see a black dog walk into the room while he was trying to sleep, on more than one occasion. At the time, I didn't believe him and presumed he was having nightmares. It was always spooky being in that house alone. Random taps and noises were commonplace. Okay, so it's 12:32 a.m. right now, and I remembered this out of nowhere, but I thought it would fit right in. So a couple of weeks ago on a Friday, we had a party at school with the school chaplain to celebrate the end of the year. One of my friends wasn't there that day because she wasn't in the country. She was my partner for a final project task worth 15% of my grade, so I decided I'd step aside from the party and sit on the bridge and video call her. One of my friends joined me. It's important that I mention that we both started hearing noises that weren't coming from any of the people at the party. We moved down to the cafeteria and sat on the stage. I hung up with my partner and sat down with my other friend. We'll name her Jane. Jane is very into Wicca and the occult and stuff. She's a strong believer, as am I. She's had paranormal experiences, and so have I, so we know what's what. We shrugged it off and laid down, when we both simultaneously felt our thighs go tingly, as though someone took a hand off them, and the lingering presence of touch remained. It's hard to explain. We sat up, and I felt as though someone placed a hand on my shoulder, and I jumped. We both started to see apparitions in the same areas at the same time. We'd point them out at the same time. It's no coincidence, and it was always around the same places. We decided to use a ghost radar app to try and give them a vessel to communicate, which worked. We ended up figuring out that the possible spirit's name was Justine. There's a lot of other details that aren't exactly important, but if you want to know, just ask. We said goodbye, but I didn't exactly feel alone. I had forgotten to cleanse my phone since it was the medium used to communicate. I went to bed and had a normal dream until I heard someone call my name. I opened my eyes and I was in my room. I tried to move, but I couldn't. I realized it was a dream, so I opened my eyes again and I re-woke up. Again, I couldn't move. But this time, it wasn't a dream. I was having sleep paralysis. I felt the same tingly feeling I felt before, except from my neck down, my entire body. I felt as though someone was standing over me and looking at me. I kept trying to move, but I couldn't. I heard voices whispering to me. And in an attempt to stop what was happening, I kept closing and opening my eyes, but it wouldn't work. I tried to grab my phone, and it felt as though my arm was moving. But it wasn't. It was as though I was moving an astral projection of my arm. So I tried to grab my phone, but obviously my astral plane hand couldn't. So I put it back on the bed. I heard laughing and a voice saying, "Look, he can't move," and more laughing. After a solid moment of freaking out, I had a realization and thought, "Justine, go away. We aren't talking right now." And I heard a voice go, "Okay." And then suddenly I can move again. I was in a cold sweat, hyperventilating, and my heart racing. I stood up immediately and booked it out of my room into the living room. I didn't even look back. It was extremely terrifying, and I told Jane about it, and she said she had some sort of interaction with Justine as well, although it wasn't as intense or as creepy. What are your thoughts? It still spooks me when I think about it, since there are definitely already spirits or shadow people in my house already.